From betrayal to true love, blind billionaire falls for fiancée's best friend. The quiet in the Grand Campbell house was no longer calm. It felt heavy and hard to breathe. The house used to be filled with laughing, business phone calls, and piano music. Now it only echoed with the sad pain of losing something important. James Campbell, the billionaire who made computers and technology, was known for being very smart and working hard. He sat still in his office, eyes open, but not really seeing anything. The car crash had taken away his sight, but not his ability to think. His world was now just shadows and sounds. He learned to recognize people's footsteps by how they walked, voices by how they sounded, and what people wanted by their silence. Vanessa, his girlfriend of 2 years, had stayed next to him. At least her body was there. In the beginning, she seemed caring and helpful. But as the weeks turned into months, and James showed no signs of getting better, the kindness in her voice started to disappear. She no longer held his hand like she used to. The I love you words turned into boring mumbles, then just silence. It started with small things. The perfume he didn't know, the quiet whispers on the phone when she thought he was sleeping. Laughter that wasn't for him. James, Vanessa said one morning, putting a not very warm cup of coffee near his hand. I've asked Derek to come over and fix the wires in the guest bedroom area. They've been blinking on and off again. James tilted his head. Derek? Yes, she said too fast. He's someone who fixes electrical things. I met him through a friend. He nodded, hiding the worried feeling growing inside him. What wires? He hadn't noticed any blinking lights. Sure, he couldn't see, but the workers would have mentioned it. Still, he said nothing. What could a sad blind man possibly say? Only Renee ever treated him the same. Vanessa's best friend, a quiet black woman with smart eyes and a calming way about her, had helped when others walked away. She didn't look at him feeling sorry for him, only with worry and kindness. She fed him when Vanessa said she was too tired. She helped him gently when he needed to move around. She asked how he was feeling and actually waited for his answer. One afternoon, Renee sat beside him on the outdoor patio. You getting enough rest, Mr. Campbell? Call me James, he replied. And I sleep when my thoughts let me. She smiled, brushing pretend dust off her skirt. Thoughts can be noisy. They never shut up, he said quietly. But I like talking to you. You don't treat me like I'm made of glass. Renee paused. Vanessa's been dealing with a lot of pressure. I'm not blind to everything, Renee, James said with a quiet strength that surprised even himself. Just most things. She didn't answer, but he could feel the worry in the way she sat. She wanted to say more. That evening, James heard Vanessa whispering by the wine cabinet. She thought he was asleep in the living room, but he had gotten good at moving around his home from memory. He stood quietly in the hallway, listening. I told you he doesn't suspect a thing, Vanessa said, her voice low and mean. He's practically a statue. I could dance naked in front of him and he wouldn't notice. There was a quiet laugh. Male, someone he didn't know. We just need to get through the next few weeks, she continued. Once I get access to the Campbell Innovation account, we're golden. Then we can disappear. James's heart pounded in his ears. So it was true. She wasn't just drifting away. She was making a plan. And Derek wasn't fixing anything. The betrayal wasn't a sharp stab. It was a dull, crushing weight that settled on his chest. He moved back toward the living room quietly. Sitting on the couch, he'd need help, but not from her. The very next morning, he told one of his workers to set up a private call to Dr. Ela Mercer, a famous eye doctor who had reached out weeks earlier. There's a chance, she said after checking his eyes. With steady treatment, you might get back some or even all of your sight, but you must be patient and keep it secret. I have more than enough patience, he said bitterly. And every reason to keep this a secret. The treatment started twice a week, pretending it was just exercise therapy. Dr. Mercer came to the house. His vision came back in pieces, blurry shapes at first, flashes of light, then slowly clear focus. He started to see again, and what he saw broke his heart. Vanessa in the arms of Derek on his couch. Vanessa wearing diamonds he hadn't given her. Derek using his laptop, putting flash drives in and out like he'd done it many times before. Through it all, Renee stayed the same. He watched her gently fix his pillow, carefully guide his hand to the fork during lunch, read the business papers out loud, even when she knew he couldn't see the words. She didn't do it for a thank you. She did it because she cared. I don't get you. James told her one day, still pretending to be blind. "What don't you get?" she asked, handing him a glass of water. "Why you're still here," Renee paused. "Because I know the man sitting in front of me isn't broken, just healing. And I don't abandon people when they need someone." His chest tightened. That night, as he stared out from his office window and actually saw the stars faintly twinkling, he realized he didn't want to live another day with lies all around him. But the time to act would come soon. 2 weeks later, James sat in the living room pretending to nap. As Vanessa packed her bags upstairs, her voice floated down the staircase as she argued with Renee. "You're really leaving him like this?" Renee asked, voice filled with shock. "I stayed long enough," Vanessa snapped. "He's no longer useful to me. And soon Derek and I will have everything. He won't even know we're gone until we're sipping margaritas in the Bahamas." "You're cruel," Renee whispered. "I'm realistic," Vanessa said coldly. "He's a miserable blind man, and I'm done pretending I care." Renee's footsteps stomped down the stairs, followed by the soft sound of her crying outside. James opened his eyes fully, clearly. His time had come. James Campbell stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the face he'd begun to see again. His eyes, once dull and lifeless, were now alert, still healing but alive with clearness and purpose. The man in the mirror wasn't broken. He was watching, waiting, and more determined than ever. He buttoned his shirt slowly, careful not to show how easily his hands found each button. Vanessa still believed he was feeling around through darkness. That trick was his advantage, and he would use it. Every day since his vision returned, James had pretended to stumble, to squint, to miss objects right in front of him. And every day, Vanessa and Derek grew bolder. The boldness of their secret romance was shocking. Sometimes they kissed in the open, laughing softly in corners they believed were safe. Derek had even started walking around the mansion like he owned it. They weren't just lovers, they were thieves. He watched them steal money from his company. Vanessa had used her limited access to move money into a fake investment account set up by Derek. They thought they were being clever, but James had been in technology long enough to recognize a digital trail, even blind. Now that he could see again, he gathered all the proof he needed: a hidden camera in his office, encrypted backups of money logs, copies of every suspicious transfer. Evidence piled up, and so did his determination. But in the middle of the betrayal, one presence never changed: Renee. She continued helping him with quiet respect, never wanting attention or praise. She didn't know he could see her now. See the way she gently guided his hand to the spoon during lunch, or fixed his collar when Vanessa forgot. She didn't know he noticed her wiping away tears after Vanessa's cruel words, or how she stayed just a moment longer when she placed a blanket over him at night. And most of all, she didn't know that James was falling for her. One rainy afternoon, James sat in the library pretending to nap while Renee read out loud. And in the end, it wasn't the betrayal that broke him. It was the silence of those he trusted. Her voice shook. "Poetic, huh?" He opened his eyes slightly, watching her face. "Is that your book?" She jumped. "Thought you were asleep." "I was listening," he said, keeping his eyes still to keep up the trick. "You have a beautiful voice." She looked away. "How you don't have to say that. I mean it," he said softly. "You read like you feel it." "Some stories hit too close to home," she whispered. He wanted to tell her everything. That he saw her. That he appreciated her. That he had never expected to find light in someone else while trapped in so much darkness. But he said nothing. Not yet. Vanessa was now barely pretending. She stayed out late, leaving lipstick-stained wine glasses on the kitchen counter, laughing openly on phone calls. One night, she came into the room smelling of cologne he didn't know. "Renee said you didn't eat dinner," she said without looking at him. "Not my problem." James didn't respond. "I'm heading out again. Derek needs help with inventory." She smirked at her own lie. Still, he stayed silent. Vanessa frowned. "You used to be fun, you know, smart, attractive. Now look at you." James turned his head slightly, lips barely curving. "Sometimes when things are broken, they just need time." She scoffed and left. From the hallway, Renee stepped out of the shadows. She hadn't meant to listen in, but the cruelty in Vanessa's voice twisted her stomach. She walked into the room. "You all right?" He nodded. "Can you stay a minute?" She hesitated. "Sure." She sat beside him on the couch, hands folded tightly. "I know she's your friend," James said quietly, "but she's hurting me." Renee looked down. "I know. I hear you defending me, he continued. You don't have to, but you do, because you deserve someone to fight for you. Why? Renee blinked. Because no one else is. And because I care. James turned his head toward her, wishing he could see her expression, but of course he could. Her cheeks were red, her eyes wet with tears she hadn't let fall. Renee, he whispered, the name like a soothing balm on his tongue. You deserve more than this. More than cleaning up the mess your friend leaves behind. More than serving a broken man. She looked at him, startled. You're not broken. You're just healing. And in that moment, James saw not just kindness in her eyes, but strength. The strength he needed. The kind he had once believed lost to him forever. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa was planning something big. He could feel it. She was growing impatient, pacing the halls, arguing more often with Derek on the phone. We do it this weekend, James overheard her whisper one night. I've got the passwords. We drain what we can and we vanish. Perfect. James sent one final secret message to his lawyer and security chief. Be here Saturday 8 p.m. Have the files ready. Don't step in until I say so. Saturday arrived. James sat alone in the living room, dressed sharply, his posture straight and calm. Vanessa had already packed a few bags and hidden them near the front door. Renee, not knowing what was happening, had gone upstairs to change after helping him eat. Vanessa stood in front of him, holding her phone. Well, James, she said with a cruel smirk, guess this is goodbye. Leaving so soon? He asked, tilting his head. She froze. There was something different in his voice. Before she could answer, Derek walked in through the front door, suitcase in hand. Let's go, babe. We've wasted enough time. Wait, James said. He stood slowly. You're both forgetting something. What the hell are you doing? Derek asked. James lifted his head, eyes sharp, locked directly on them. Watching, Vanessa's face drained of color. Your eyes. I've seen everything, Vanessa, James said coldly. Every kiss, every stolen file, every lie. She stumbled back. James, Save it, he stepped closer. You tried to rob me blind, literally. You brought your affair into my home, planned to steal my company, and mocked me while doing it. I didn't mean... But Renee, he interrupted, his voice softening. She meant everything. Vanessa's lips trembled. You're leaving me for her? I left you the moment you chose greed over love, he said. And I fell for Renee the moment she chose compassion over comfort. Derek snorted. Let's go, Vanessa. This loser is playing soap opera. James pulled out his phone. You might want to reconsider. Security footage, account logs, evidence, all sent to my legal team. Within seconds, the front gates locked with a loud click. A uniformed guard stepped into the doorway. Derek dropped his suitcase. Screw this. He turned and ran out the back door, leaving Vanessa stunned, her entire plan falling apart around her. James looked at her once more. You can leave alone with nothing. Vanessa opened her mouth to beg, but James had already turned away. Later that evening, James found Renee in the garden looking up at the stars. Hey, he said softly. She turned, startled. You're walking by yourself? He smiled. I've been seeing for weeks. Her eyes widened. What? I had to know the truth. Renee took a step back. And you do now. He reached for her hand. I also know something else. I'm in love with you. She stared at him, heart racing. I didn't plan it, he said. But every time you helped me, defended me, sat beside me, I felt alive, whole, like I could see again. Even before I actually could. Renee blinked rapidly. I don't know what to say. Say you feel the same, he said gently. She smiled through tears. I do. And under the stars, in the same home where betrayal had once darkened the halls, a new kind of love was born. Quiet, powerful, and unshakable. The morning after the confrontation felt like the first real sunrise James Campbell had seen in months. Light flooded through the windows of the Campbell estate. Not just the light that met the eyes, but the kind that touched the soul. For the first time in a long time, his home felt like his again. Vanessa was gone. Her bags, her perfume, her mean words and cold silence vanished. Derek, too, had disappeared into the wind, once James's legal team released a warning through the proper channels. Come near Mr. Campbell again and you'll face charges for theft, fraud and conspiracy. And now all that remained was peace. But James knew that wasn't entirely true. Something else stayed in the halls. Something new, something fragile and beautiful. Renee. She moved through the house with hesitation that morning, unsure of where she stood now that the storm had passed. She had spent so many weeks caring for him in the shadows, never expecting anything in return. Now the spotlight had shifted, and her heart was out in the open. James found her in the kitchen, standing at the sink, with a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "You're quiet today," he said gently. She turned, startled, still getting used to the fact that "you see me now." "I always saw you," he said, long before my vision returned. Renee gave a nervous laugh, brushing her braids behind her ear. "It's just surreal. All this time I thought you were in the dark." "I was," James admitted, "but not just because of the accident." He stepped closer, looking into her eyes. "I was blind to what love was, real love, until you." Her gaze dropped. "You've just been through a lot. I'm sure everything feels intense right now." James reached out and took her hand. "Don't try to talk me out of loving you." Renee's breath caught. "I've been a lot of things, Renee," he continued. "Powerful, respected, even feared. But with you, I'm just a man. And that's enough." Renee looked up at him, tears forming. "James, are you sure this is what you want? After everything, Vanessa, the betrayal, the pain, you really want to start something new with me?" He nodded without hesitation. "I don't want to start over. I want to move forward with you." The next few weeks felt like a slow, healing breath out. James focused on recovery, both physical and emotional. With Vanessa and Derek out of the picture, he restructured his business security, changed his estate trust, and quietly made Renee a formal advisor in his personal matters. It wasn't about money. It was about trust. They spent their evenings walking in the gardens, cooking dinner together, and rediscovering joy in small shared moments. Laughter returned to the house. Not the hollow kind that had echoed during Vanessa's time, but warm, real, healing laughter. One evening, James and Renee sat by the fire, curled up on the velvet couch. A soft jazz record played in the background. The flames flickered, casting golden light across Renee's cheek. "I never thought I'd end up here," Renee murmured. "In this house? In your arms?" James smiled. "Neither did I." She tilted her head. "Were you ever really in love with Vanessa?" He paused before answering. "I was in love with the idea of her. The version of her I thought was real. But it wasn't love. Not like this." Renee looked away. "She always thought I was foolish. Staying here, helping you, she said I was wasting my life." "You weren't wasting anything," James said firmly. "You were saving mine." Their eyes locked. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't. Their lips met in a soft, slow kiss, one that spoke of gratitude, forgiveness, and hope. It was the beginning of something deeper. Months passed, and with them came clarity, purpose, and growth. James got back nearly full sight. The media caught wind of Vanessa's failed scheme, and she quickly disappeared from the social circle, disgraced and forgotten. Derek was later arrested in a separate corporate scandal. His brief chapter in James' life finally closed, but none of that mattered anymore because love had bloomed in the ashes of betrayal. One spring afternoon, James invited Renee to the rooftop garden. The city skyline stretched in the distance, the air fragrant with roses and jasmine. She arrived to find him standing under an arch of white wisteria, dressed in a crisp navy suit. "What is all this?" she asked, eyes wide. He smiled. "A moment I've been planning for a while." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Renee gasped. "Renee, you showed me what love is. You saw me when I was invisible, helped me when I couldn't help myself, and stood by me when everyone else ran. I don't want to live another day without you by my side." He opened the box to reveal a shining cut diamond ring set in a platinum band. "Will you marry me?" Renee covered her mouth with shaking fingers, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Their wedding was small but elegant, set in the Campbell garden under the same arch where he had proposed. Only a handful of close friends and staff were present. There were no photographers, no press, no big show, just love. As Renee walked down the aisle in a satin ivory gown, James could barely keep his calm. She was radiant, her smile brighter than any light he had ever seen. They exchanged vows surrounded by rose petals and candlelight. James held her hands as he said, "From the moment you cared for me, when I couldn't care for myself, I knew you were my future. You brought light back into my life, and I vow to always protect yours." Renee's voice shook as she replied, "You taught me that love isn't found. It's built through kindness, honesty, and trust." and I promise to keep building with you every day." When they kissed, the garden burst into gentle applause. It wasn't just a celebration of marriage. It was a victory of love over lies, of hope over hurt. That night, after the guests had gone and the candles had burned low, James and Renee stood together on the balcony overlooking the estate. The city shimmered beyond the trees, but James only had eyes for her. "You know," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist, "if I had to go blind again to find you, I'd do it." She leaned her head against his chest. "You don't have to go blind anymore, James. You just have to keep seeing me." He kissed her forehead. "Always." As they stood there under the stars, hand in hand, James knew the truth. He had lost his sight, but found his vision. And this time, with his eyes and heart wide open, he was finally home. The sun dipped low over the Tuscan hills, bathing the vineyard in golden light. Rows of grapevines stretched across the land like nature's blanket. And at the heart of it all stood a stone villa, elegant, timeless and filled with laughter. Renee stood on the veranda, her hand resting gently over the small swell of her belly. The breeze tugged at the hem of her linen dress, and a few curls danced across her cheek. She smiled as James approached with 2 glasses of sparkling juice. "For the lady of the land," he said, handing her a glass with a wink. She laughed softly. "Did I miss wine already?" "Well, this vineyard isn't going anywhere," he said, resting his hand on her back. "We'll toast again in a few months." They sat on a bench overlooking the valley, their fingers intertwined. "You know," Renee murmured, "if someone had told me 2 years ago I'd be living in Italy with James Campbell carrying his child, I would have told them they needed serious help." James chuckled. "And if someone had told me I'd be married to my ex's best friend and happier than I've ever been, I'd probably have called my therapist." They looked at each other, sharing a deep, content silence. It was the kind of silence that needed no explanation, just years of growth, healing, and trust behind it. James brushed his hand over her baby bump. "You think they'll have your smile?" "I hope so," she whispered. "But your patience wouldn't hurt either." He leaned over and kissed her temple. "As long as they have your heart, we'll be just fine." In the distance, the estate staff lit lanterns along the stone path, their light flickering like fireflies in the twilight. Renee turned to him, her voice tender. "You really did come back to life, James." "No," he said softly, pulling her closer. "You brought me back." As the first stars began to appear in the sky, they sat wrapped in each other's warmth beneath the soft glow of lanterns and the whispering vines. The world was quiet, but their future echoed with laughter, love, and the tiny heartbeat yet to be heard. A new chapter was waiting, and this time they'd walk into it with eyes wide open and hearts wide open, too. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. Your love, comments, and shares mean everything. Grateful for each of you.